The sea is calm, but beneath the shimmering waters of the Adriatic lies a story that has haunted the shores of Croatia for centuries. A tale that whispers of a lost city, swallowed by the waves, remembered only in fragments of legend and half-forgotten chronicles. Some call it the Croatian Atlantis. Others dismiss it as nothing more than a sailor's fable, a myth born of wine and storms. But what if the truth lies somewhere in between? What if a civilization really did vanish here, leaving behind traces that no one has fully explained? The Adriatic has always been more than a body of water. It is a corridor of empires, a stage where Greek merchants, Roman legions, Venetian traders, and Ottoman fleets once clashed. Its shores are lined with ruins, fortresses, temples, and sunken harbors that bear witness to thousands of years of history. But hidden among the countless stones, myths emerge of something older, something more mysterious. A city that supposedly existed before the Romans, before the Greeks, perhaps even before history itself. A city swallowed by the sea, its name erased, but its memory stubbornly preserved in whispers. The earliest hints of this legend surface in medieval manuscripts, written by monks in coastal monasteries. They tell of fishermen who cast their nets and pulled up strange stones, columns carved with symbols no one could read, pieces of pottery unlike any seen before, and fragments of walls that seemed to extend into the sea. These stories might have been dismissed as superstition, if not for one detail. They always pointed to the same location, a stretch of the Adriatic near the island of Pag, where locals spoke of ruins lying beneath the waves, visible only on rare days when the water was perfectly still. The people of Dalmatia gave the place a name, Atlantida na Jadranu, Atlantis in the Adriatic. The phrase was both mocking and reverent. For some, it was nothing more than a way to dress up old stones in grand legend. But for others, it was a clue to something profound, that Europe itself might have had its own Atlantis, its own lost city, forgotten not in the Atlantic Ocean but here, in the heart of the Mediterranean world. But how does a myth like this survive for centuries? The answer lies in the oral traditions of the Adriatic coast. In villages clinging to rocky cliffs, grandmothers told their grandchildren that the sea once took a city as punishment for arrogance. According to one story, the people of the city mocked the gods, declaring themselves untouchable. In their pride, they built palaces of white stone and towers that gleamed like mirrors in the sun. One night, a storm unlike any other rose from the sea. Waves towered like mountains, lightning split the sky, and by morning, the city was gone, swallowed whole. Only fishermen, drifting too far from shore, sometimes glimpsed its remnants beneath the waves. Streets of stone, doorways leading to nowhere, and statues staring silently upward through the water. Legends alone would not be enough to hold modern attention. But then came the evidence. In the 20th century, divers exploring the Adriatic near Pag and other Croatian islands reported something astonishing. Underwater structures that seemed far too deliberate to be natural. Massive stone blocks arranged in patterns, aligned like streets, with right angles that nature rarely forms. To some, it was proof that the myth might have a foundation in reality. To skeptics, it was nothing more than coincidence, an illusion created by fractured seabeds and geological quirks. But the divers swore by what they saw, and some even brought back photographs that remain controversial to this day. And yet, the story grows stranger, because this supposed Croatian Atlantis doesn't exist in isolation. All across the Adriatic, from Istria to Dalmatia, there are rumors of sunken cities, remnants of settlements swallowed by earthquakes, floods, or rising seas. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder once mentioned lost islands in this region, vanishing mysteriously into the depths. Later Venetian records tell of coastal towns destroyed overnight by the sea. Could all these fragments, legends, ruins, manuscripts be pointing to a deeper truth? That the Adriatic itself has been swallowing civilizations for millennia? To truly understand this mystery, one must step back into the Bronze Age, long before Rome, long before even Greece. The Adriatic was home to the Illyrians, an enigmatic people who left behind little written history, but whose fortresses and burial mounds still, the Croatian hills. Some believe that the lost city of the Adriatic might have been Illyrian, a powerful settlement that fell not to war but to nature. The Adriatic is riddled with seismic faults, and earthquakes have reshaped the coastline countless times. A single catastrophic tremor, followed by a tsunami, could have erased an entire city in one night. But here's where the legend becomes even more compelling. Some researchers suggest that this Croatian Atlantis might not just be an Illyrian city, but something older, something prehistoric. The last ice age ended roughly 12,000 years ago, and as glaciers melted, sea levels rose dramatically. Entire coastlines vanished beneath the waves, drowning villages and hunting grounds. Could the Croatian Atlantis be a remnant of that forgotten world, preserved in local memory across millennia? The question lingers like salt on the air. Is this legend just a convenient echo of the global Atlantis myth? Or is it evidence of something truly unique to the Adriatic? The fascination lies not only in the possibility of a lost city, but in what such a discovery would mean. If proven real, it would rewrite the history of the Balkans. It would suggest that long before the Greeks and Romans, long before Christianity and Venice, there was another civilization here, advanced enough to leave behind great structures, but fragile enough to vanish without a trace. But every mystery has its guardians, and the legend of the Croatian Atlantis is no exception. In recent years, amateur divers, archaeologists, and even treasure hunters have descended upon the Adriatic, searching for the lost city. Some claim to have found walls beneath the sea. Others speak of roads paved in stone, stretching into the abyss. And yet, official recognition remains elusive. Governments and institutions hesitate to validate these findings, wary of mixing science with myth. Still, the allure is undeniable. Something about the idea of a lost city beneath familiar waters draws people back again and again, like moths to flame. And here lies the hook. If this city exists, if it is more than just a myth, then why hasn't it been studied in depth? Why do whispers of discoveries vanish into silence? Why are the few photos that exist so grainy, so easily dismissed? Is it possible that the Croatian Atlantis has been deliberately forgotten, its existence inconvenient for those who hold the keys to history? The Adriatic is vast, its waters concealing secrets older than empires. And as we begin this journey into the legend of the Croatian Atlantis, we face a choice. Do we dismiss it as folklore, or do we dare to dive deeper, to peel back the layers of myth and uncover whether a lost city really does sleep beneath the waves? Because if it does, it changes everything we thought we knew about Europe's past. The sea is deceptive. To a casual observer, the waters of the Adriatic appear calm, almost benign, stretching out endlessly in a mosaic of silver and blue. But beneath that serene surface lies a world steeped in memory, where time has preserved fragments of civilizations long forgotten. The Adriatic has always been a crossroads, a sea that connected Italy with the Balkans, Greece with Central Europe, and empires with their distant colonies. And somewhere in its depths, or perhaps along its jagged coastline, the whispers of a lost city have persisted for centuries. The legend of the so-called Croatian Atlantis is more than just a fantastical tale. It is a mystery interwoven with folklore, fragments of archaeological discovery, and the strange alignment of natural geography. Unlike Plato's Atlantis, which most historians now regard as allegory, this Adriatic story has roots in multiple traditions, local songs, and fishermen's accounts passed down from generation to generation. It is not a single narrative, but rather a patchwork of memories that seem to converge on one persistent question. Did an ancient city truly vanish beneath these waters? The first accounts date back to the Middle Ages, when Venetian sailors traveling along the Dalmatian coast wrote of strange shapes visible beneath the water's surface. What looked like columns, walls, and streets, eerily distinct during moments of exceptional clarity at sea. Some chroniclers described an entire drowned settlement near the island of Mulje, while others pointed to the Pelgisac Peninsula or the shallows near the Kornati archipelago. The descriptions varied, but the theme was consistent. A city swallowed by the sea, its existence frozen in aquatic silence. By the 19th century, with the rise of scientific exploration and romantic fascination with ruins, European adventurers began to investigate these rumors. Divers, limited by primitive equipment, claimed to have seen geometric formations under the waves, though most evidence vanished into the haze of unverified reports. Yet the story refused to die. For locals, especially along the Dalmatian coast, it was woven into identity itself. Some villages carried songs about ancestors who had fled a great flood, taking refuge on nearby islands. Others spoke of bells tolling from beneath the sea during storms, the sound of a city long gone but never fully erased. Could this be folklore exaggerated by imagination, or was there a deeper truth hidden in the seabed? To understand, we must remember that the Adriatic is not static. Over millennia, coastlines shifted, earthquakes shook the region, and sea levels rose. Entire tracts of land that were once habitable may now lie beneath the water. In fact, geological studies confirm that during the last ice age, the Adriatic was not the broad sea we see today, but rather a vast plain, where rivers carved valleys and humans may have built settlements. As the glaciers melted, waters advanced, swallowing communities and reshaping geography forever. This possibility adds a chilling realism to the myth. If ancient coastal settlements were submerged, their remnants might still exist, buried under silt, hidden in trenches, or camouflaged as reefs. What today seems like myth might once have been memory, passed down in oral tradition long enough to transform into legend. The concept of a Croatian Atlantis is therefore not entirely fantastical. It might be an echo of genuine prehistory. But as we descend deeper into the story, we encounter another layer of intrigue: politics. In the Balkans, where history and identity are fiercely contested, even the mystery of a lost city becomes entangled in disputes of heritage. Croatia and its neighbors, particularly Montenegro and even parts of Italy, all hold claims to certain variations of the legend. Archaeologists from different nations sometimes interpret the same evidence through the lens of national pride, each eager to prove that their land once hosted the mysterious civilization. In this way, the Adriatic Atlantis has become not just a tale of the past, but also a quiet struggle over cultural ownership. One of the most compelling locations tied to the myth is near the island of Pag, famous today for its lunar-like landscapes and ancient stone structures. Underwater surveys have revealed curious formations, rectangular shapes aligned too neatly to be natural. Some researchers argue these could be remnants of prehistoric walls or roads, built when the sea level was much lower. Skeptics, however, insist that such patterns are natural karst formations, the result of geological processes rather than human hands. The debate remains unresolved, but for storytellers and local residents, the allure of mystery outweighs the demand for scientific certainty. Another candidate lies near the island of Var, one of the Adriatic's jewels. Known for its Venetian architecture and lavender fields today, Var has ancient roots stretching back to Greek colonists and Illyrian tribes. Divers off its southern coast reported finding what resembled steps carved into rock beneath shallow waters. Were these remnants of a pier, an ancient harbor swallowed by the sea, or simply the play of erosion on limestone? No definitive study has answered the question, leaving the legend open to speculation and to imagination. And then there is the story of Mulje. This island, covered in dense forests and cloaked in mystery, has long been linked with myth. Some scholars even argue that Mulje could have inspired Homer's Odyssey, serving as the home of the enchantress Calypso. Local lore, however, adds a more haunting dimension. A tale of a city that once stood proud along its shores, destroyed either by divine wrath or natural disaster. Fishermen whisper of ruins glimpsed through clear waters, of shadows that look like streets and buildings. Whether real or illusion, such stories add to the sense that something ancient lingers, just out of reach. The fascination with a drowned city is not unique to Croatia. It echoes in countless cultures. But in the Adriatic, the legend carries particular weight because of the sea's intimate role in everyday life. Generations of families built their survival around fishing, navigation, and trade. To them, the sea was both provider and destroyer, a force of abundance and tragedy. The idea that it could also conceal an entire civilization feels less like fantasy and more like a natural extension of lived experience. Modern technology has reopened the debate. In recent years, with the advent of sonar mapping, high-resolution satellite imagery, and advanced diving equipment, researchers have begun re-examining the Adriatic floor. Some findings are tantalizing. Unusual geometric anomalies, patterns that resemble foundations, and submerged landscapes suggesting human activity. Still, the scientific community remains cautious. Evidence is suggestive but inconclusive, and without clear artifacts, pottery, tools, inscriptions, it is difficult to prove that these underwater mysteries are indeed man-made. Yet, as history shows, the line between myth and archaeology is not always clear-cut. Consider Troy, once believed to be a purely mythical city until Heinrich Schliemann's excavations in the 19th century revealed its ruins in modern-day Turkey. Could the Adriatic hide a similar revelation? Could the Croatian Atlantis be another Troy, waiting to resurface from centuries of disbelief? The very uncertainty of the legend fuels its power. It captures the imagination because it cannot be fully resolved. The idea of a hidden city beneath the sea is a mirror for our own curiosity, a reflection of humanity's endless hunger for discovery. Whether true or not, it forces us to confront the fragility of civilizations, that what we build may one day be swallowed, remembered only in stories and whispers. In coastal towns along Dalmatia, this legend lives not in museums or scholarly papers, but in the rhythm of life itself. Children hear the tales from grandparents, tourists ask guides about the sunken city, and artists paint visions of towers glowing under turquoise waves. For them, the myth is not about proof but about identity, a reminder that they live on lands steeped in mystery, where history and myth blend seamlessly into one another. But as the story deepens, one pressing question emerges. What if this legend is not just about the past, but also about the future? Rising sea levels today threaten coastlines worldwide, including those of the Adriatic. Towns that have stood for centuries may face the same fate as the fabled city beneath the waves. In this sense, the Croatian Atlantis is both memory and warning, a haunting glimpse into what happens when humanity collides with the forces of nature. The Adriatic holds its secrets tightly. Whether the lost city is real or imagined, it continues to haunt those who sail its waters and walk its shores. And the search for answers has only just begun. For every diver who resurfaces with stories of strange formations, for every sonar scan that reveals an anomaly, the mystery deepens, pulling us further into its depths. As we stand on the edge of the Adriatic, gazing across its shifting horizon, one question echoes above all. Is the lost city of Croatia a myth spun from the imagination, or is it a truth waiting patiently beneath the waves, waiting for us to rediscover it? As the Adriatic sun dips behind the horizon, the waters reflect not only shimmering golden light, but also centuries of mystery. If there truly is a lost city beneath the Adriatic waves, the next logical question emerges. What exactly is it and who built it? This is where historians, archaeologists, and dreamers collide in fierce debates. Because the Croatian Atlantis, as it has been called, isn't just a legend, it is a puzzle with multiple possible answers. Some theories are grounded in science, while others dive into myth and speculation. And yet, each one adds another layer to this enigma. The first theory points directly to the ancient Illyrians, the mysterious tribes who once ruled much of the Balkans long before the Romans arrived. They were fierce warriors, known for their skill in both land and naval battles. Historical texts suggest that the Illyrians were not mere nomads, but had established settlements along the Adriatic coast. Could one of these settlements have been swallowed by the sea? Some archaeologists argue that strong earthquakes, common in the region, could have triggered a sudden collapse of coastal land. If that were the case, then the ruins reported off the Croatian coast might simply be remnants of an Illyrian port city lost to tectonic violence. But others reject the Illyrian theory. They point to more complex structures described by divers, stone blocks that appear deliberately cut, positioned in patterns resembling streets or foundations. Such precision, they argue, doesn't align with what we know of Illyrian construction. That leads us to the second theory, the Romans. Rome's presence in the Adriatic was not just military, it was infrastructural. Roman engineers built roads, aqueducts, and entire cities designed to last millennia. We know of Roman settlements all across Dalmatia, from Split to Zadar, where ruins still stand proudly today. But what if one of those settlements was claimed by the Adriatic? Historical records mention smaller Roman outposts that seemingly disappeared from maps. If a Roman port town was submerged, it would explain the geometric designs divers described. But the Roman hypothesis also presents problems. Many of the supposed ruins are located deeper than what coastal erosion or gradual sea level rise over 2,000 years could realistically explain. Unless there was a catastrophic event, such as a massive earthquake or sudden land subsidence, the Roman explanation feels incomplete. And then, inevitably, we come to the theory that excites the imagination most, the possibility of an advanced civilization, one that predates the Romans and Illyrians, one forgotten by time. Supporters of this view argue that civilizations like the Minoans and Mycenaeans, who flourished across the Mediterranean, could have had connections to the Adriatic. Trade routes were extensive, and seafaring cultures often left behind colonies far from their original homelands. Could it be that a Minoan or Mycenaean outpost once thrived here, only to vanish beneath the waves? This hypothesis draws parallels with Santorini, where a volcanic eruption destroyed much of the Minoan world. What if a similar catastrophe occurred in the Adriatic? It would explain sudden disappearance, underwater ruins, and the lack of clear written records. But skeptics dismiss this as romanticism, accusing believers of projecting the myth of Atlantis onto every unusual discovery. And yet, the idea refuses to die. Of course, speaking of Atlantis brings us to the most sensational theory of all, that the Croatian Atlantis is Atlantis. The original Atlantis described by Plato has been sought in countless places: the Mediterranean, the Atlantic Ocean, even Antarctica. So why not the Adriatic? Proponents argue that Plato's description of an advanced civilization that vanished in a cataclysm might align with seismic and volcanic activity in this region. The Adriatic has always been a crossroads of civilizations, a place where myth and reality blur. Could Plato's words have echoed memories of a real disaster that unfolded here thousands of years ago? But here lies the danger. The further we stretch, the more fragile the evidence becomes. Critics insist that by chasing Atlantis in the Adriatic, we risk ignoring more grounded explanations, like ancient ports simply lost to time. Still, the allure of Atlantis is too powerful to resist. Each diver who descends into those waters secretly wonders, what if Plato was right, and what if it happened here? Moving from myth to science, another group of researchers offers a different explanation altogether. They argue that what divers have been interpreting as ruins may not be man-made at all. Instead, they could be natural geological formations, limestone blocks fractured by tectonic activity, arranged by coincidence into patterns resembling human architecture. After all, nature can be deceptive. Around the world, there are countless examples of natural formations that look artificial: the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, or the Yonaguni Monument off Japan. Could the Adriatic's mystery simply be another case of nature playing tricks on our perception? But this scientific skepticism, while rational, fails to explain the legends. Stories of the sea swallowing cities appear again and again in local folklore. Villagers speak of hearing bells ringing beneath the waves, as if a church still calls its parishioners long after the city has drowned. Songs passed down across generations speak of lost lands and sudden floods. Could all of these cultural memories truly be based on nothing but rock formations? Skeptics may shrug, but storytellers know better. Even myths often carry grains of truth. Adding yet another twist, historians highlight the turbulent medieval period. The Adriatic coast was constantly fought over by Venetians, Hungarians, and Ottoman Turks. Entire villages were sometimes abandoned, destroyed, or intentionally sunk to prevent enemies from using them. One legend even claims that during an Ottoman advance, a coastal settlement was deliberately flooded by its own defenders to deny it to invaders. If true, the ruins may not be thousands of years old at all, but instead medieval, a reminder of desperate times when survival meant sacrificing entire cities. And then there's climate change, but not the modern one. Thousands of years ago, after the last ice age, sea levels rose dramatically. Archaeologists have proven that many parts of Europe's coastline once looked very different. Villages and settlements that thrived near ancient shorelines now lie underwater. Could the Croatian Atlantis simply be one of many forgotten victims of natural sea level rise? It's a theory supported by hard data, but one that lacks the dramatic flair people crave. After all, it is less exciting to say a village slowly drowned over centuries than to imagine a catastrophic collapse in a single night. Still, one question lingers through all these theories. Why hasn't the mystery been conclusively solved? With modern sonar, underwater drones, and advanced archaeology, shouldn't we already know what lies beneath? Some claim it's because proper research hasn't been funded. Croatia, though rich in history, doesn't always have the resources for costly underwater excavations. Others whisper of political reasons, that too much attention on this mystery might ignite disputes between nations about heritage and ownership. After all, if the ruins turned out to be Roman, Italian voices might claim a piece of the past. If Illyrian, they'd become a cornerstone of Balkan identity. And if something older, something far more mysterious, then who could truly claim it? That is why, for now, the mystery of the Adriatic Atlantis remains unsolved. Each theory adds intrigue, but none provides certainty. Some see Illyrians, others Romans, others a forgotten advanced culture, or perhaps nothing but rock. And yet the legend lives, growing stronger with each retelling. Because in the end, the truth may matter less than the questions it raises. For centuries, the Adriatic has been a stage where empires, traders, and warriors have crossed paths. To think that somewhere beneath its waves lies a forgotten chapter of history is both haunting and inspiring. Theories may divide scholars, but the mystery unites all who hear it in wonder. And as long as no final answer exists, the Adriatic Atlantis will continue to shimmer, half history, half legend, beneath the surface of the sea. The Adriatic Sea, calm and glittering beneath the Mediterranean sun, holds within its depth stories that have never fully surfaced. As we move deeper into the investigation of the so-called Croatian Atlantis, the fog thickens instead of clearing. Historians, divers, and dreamers each bring their own light to this enigma, but their beams scatter in different directions, illuminating fragments while leaving vast shadows intact. By the late 20th century, a tidal wave of theories had begun to rise, each trying to answer a question that might never truly find resolution. What exactly lies beneath the waves off the Croatian coast, and why has it captured the imagination of so many? Some researchers lean on mythology. To them, the submerged ruins near Pag Island, Brac, and Var are the physical remnants of tales long thought to be allegorical. They suggest that the Adriatic was home to advanced communities that predated classical Greece, seafarers who may have had ties to the Minoans or even to the elusive Atlanteans themselves. For these theorists, the so-called Croatian Atlantis is not a mere coincidence of stone patterns underwater. It is a window into a civilization erased not just by rising seas but by the deliberate forgetting of history. Yet scientists urge caution. Geologists and marine archaeologists argue that what divers see are often natural formations. Karstic rocks shaped by millennia of water erosion, bizarre but explainable geometries carved not by human hands but by the relentless force of tides and currents. They point to similar phenomena across the Mediterranean where the sea has created perfect angles, straight lines, and what seem like steps, but are in fact quirks of geology. To them, the mystery does not diminish the Adriatic's beauty, but instead underscores nature's power to craft illusions. Still, others remain unconvinced by these naturalistic explanations. Local fishermen who have lived their lives along the Croatian coast tell of moments when the sea seems to whisper differently, of sunken walls visible at low tide, of stones arranged too neatly to be mere chance. To dismiss these voices would be to ignore the living memory of communities whose relationship with the Adriatic is as intimate as breathing. Could it be that the truth lies somewhere in between, a blending of natural landscapes modified by human activity, then swallowed by the sea during cataclysmic shifts in the past? By the late 1990s, interest in the Croatian Atlantis had expanded beyond regional curiosity. International teams of divers, often drawn by both scientific intrigue and the thrill of mystery, began to probe the underwater landscapes with more advanced tools. Side-scan sonar, underwater drones, and high-resolution mapping technologies revealed formations that seemed even more perplexing. A series of rectangular blocks, aligned almost perfectly, were documented off the coast of Pag. To the untrained eye, the images were undeniable evidence of human construction. To skeptics, they were simply more natural rock shelves given new life through the filter of wishful interpretation. What makes the Croatian Atlantis particularly fascinating is how it stands at the crossroads of disciplines. Archaeologists see in it the possibility of rewriting Mediterranean prehistory. Oceanographers see a chance to study dramatic sea level changes that reshaped entire coastlines after the last ice age. Mythologists see in it confirmation that ancient stories of cities swallowed by the sea, of gods punishing hubris, of worlds lost, were grounded in reality. And for local communities, the story itself, regardless of its factual resolution, becomes a treasure, an identity marker, and perhaps even a potential boon for tourism. The clash of perspectives often creates more heat than light. At academic conferences, debates over the Croatian Atlantis can grow tense. Is it ethical to fuel public fascination with what might be nothing more than rocks? Or is it irresponsible to dismiss outright what could be humanity's forgotten chapter? The very name, Croatian Atlantis, is controversial. Some scholars embrace it, seeing its mythic resonance as a way to draw global attention. Others reject it, warning that it sensationalizes and distorts the hard work of scientific investigation. Yet, regardless of stance, no one denies that the phenomenon has gained a life of its own. Documentaries have been filmed, books written, and dive expeditions sponsored by media outlets eager to capture footage of the Adriatic's hidden world. In some underwater shots, light plays upon the stones in such a way that they resemble corridors and plazas. Narrators with hushed voices suggest that we are looking at the remnants of a metropolis drowned thousands of years ago. The images travel across screens worldwide, embedding themselves into the minds of viewers who may never set foot in Croatia, but now associate its coast with an unsolved mystery. At the same time, the mystery becomes political. As Croatia sought to assert its national identity in the years following its independence, the story of a Croatian Atlantis became more than an archaeological puzzle. It became a potential symbol of continuity, of a land with roots deeper than modern borders. Some local voices argue that if the ruins do represent a lost civilization, then Croatia's cultural heritage expands beyond imagination. Others caution that claiming Atlantis, a symbol long fought over by countless nations, risks trivializing the country's real and documented history. And yet, perhaps the greatest power of the Croatian Atlantis lies not in whether it is proven real, but in how it functions as a canvas for human imagination. Each diver who descends into the Adriatic brings with them a different lens. One sees myth, another science, another opportunity. Each perspective adds to the mosaic, creating a story richer than any single explanation. What unites them all is the acknowledgement of mystery, an admission that even in the age of satellites and deep-sea probes, our world still holds secrets. Theories multiply like waves crashing against the coast. Some link the ruins to the legendary city of Isa, an ancient Greek colony believed to have held secrets of navigation and trade. Others stretch further, suggesting that the Croatian Atlantis was a maritime hub connecting the Adriatic to civilizations in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. A few even claim extraterrestrial involvement, pointing to the precision of underwater formations as evidence of influence from beyond our planet. While mainstream scholars scoff, these fringe theories often capture the imagination of the public, spreading rapidly online, in forums, and through social media, where mystery thrives. The deeper the exploration goes, the less certain the answers become. Underwater surveys conducted in the 2000s revealed anomalies, objects resembling stone pillars, aligned trenches, and stair-like features. Yet none could be definitively confirmed as man-made. Critics argue that confirmation bias plays a central role. Divers and explorers go down expecting to find lost cities, and so they interpret ambiguous shapes as evidence. Supporters counter that skepticism is merely fear of rewriting established narratives. In the end, the Croatian Atlantis embodies the eternal tension between doubt and belief, between science and myth. The Adriatic's waters remain silent, revealing enough to tantalize but never enough to satisfy. Each discovery raises more questions than it answers. Are we glimpsing the remnants of a forgotten people, their achievements erased by time and tide? Or are we simply staring at rocks and dreaming them into something more? And then comes a twist. Recent sonar scans have revealed an anomaly beneath the seafloor itself, a buried structure, rectangular in shape, larger than anything found in earlier dives. Some claim this could be the breakthrough, the proof long awaited. Others warn of jumping to conclusions, reminding us that anomalies are not evidence until excavated and studied. Yet, the very existence of such a mystery fuels speculation. If something truly lies beneath, covered by sand and silt for millennia, could it rewrite not only Croatian history but Mediterranean history as a whole? The storm of theories shows no signs of subsiding. In fact, it grows louder, sweeping across disciplines, nations, and imaginations. The Croatian Atlantis, whether real or imagined, has already achieved immortality, not as ruins carved in stone, but as an idea that refuses to sink. And perhaps that is the most profound truth of all. Some cities are never lost, because we keep finding them in the stories we tell. The Adriatic was quiet now. The waves rolled endlessly, as they had for thousands of years, concealing secrets too deep and too stubborn to be forgotten. For centuries, fishermen had whispered about strange ruins beneath the water, about shadows of columns and streets appearing on clear days, vanishing as quickly as they were seen. Historians had debated, skeptics had laughed, and dreamers had written poetry about a drowned city that defied explanation. And yet, no matter how often the mystery was dismissed, it kept coming back. The story of a Croatian Atlantis would not die. Why? Because the idea of a city swallowed by the sea touches something deep within us. It is the eternal reminder that civilizations, no matter how strong, can be fragile. That human brilliance, art, and ambition can disappear in an instant. That time is merciless and water is patient. And yet, like Atlantis itself, the story survives, passed from generation to generation, each retelling keeping the dream alive. Archaeologists had offered theories. Some pointed to the small islet of Palagruza, others to the submerged structures near Pag, or the ruins off the coast of Kaftat. Advanced sonar scans had revealed patterns that seemed far too symmetrical to be natural. Walls, corridors, circular enclosures, all deep beneath the waves. Were they remnants of ancient ports, Roman villas, or perhaps even older civilizations erased from memory? Nobody could say for certain, but the deeper the divers went, the more the Adriatic seemed to whisper, there was something here, and yet the scientific community remained divided. Some claimed these formations were nothing more than natural limestone outcrops. Others believed they were remnants of Illyrian settlements, flooded as sea levels rose. A smaller, more daring group believed they were staring at evidence of a civilization far older than history books dared acknowledge. A culture lost not to war, not to plague, but to the very sea itself. Legends persisted. Fishermen along the Dalmatian coast spoke of hearing bells ringing from beneath the water during storms. Others swore they had seen ghostly lights glowing in the depths. One tale told of a diver who swam too deep and returned gasping, unable to speak, his eyes wide with terror at something he had seen. He died weeks later, never revealing what lay below. These stories, blending myth and memory, only added fuel to the mystery. But perhaps the most haunting question of all was not whether the city had existed, but why the story had survived for so long. Why did humans cling to the myth of a drowned paradise? Was it nostalgia for a golden age? A warning of nature's wrath? Or perhaps a reflection of our own fear that everything we build, no matter how mighty, is temporary? To understand the allure, one must step back. Imagine it. A bustling port city, white marble glistening in the sun, markets filled with spices and silks, sailors from every corner of the Mediterranean unloading their goods, children running through narrow alleys, priests chanting prayers in temples, craftsmen chiseling stone into delicate mosaics. And then silence. One night, the sea rises, the ground trembles, and in a single day and night, the city is gone. No survivors, no escape, only the memory of what once was. This is not just a Croatian story, it is a human story. From Atlantis to Lyoness, from Dvarka to Yanaguni, cultures across the globe have legends of cities lost to the waves. Each one is a mirror reflecting our own fragility. We tell these stories because they remind us of something essential, that even the greatest civilizations are at the mercy of forces they cannot control. And yet, there is hope hidden in these myths, because even though the cities are gone, the stories endure. The people who lived there may be forgotten, their names lost, their streets buried, but their existence is remembered through legend. In a way, they achieved a kind of immortality. A drowned city still speaks, centuries after its fall. The Adriatic's lost city is more than a curiosity for divers or a puzzle for historians. It is a symbol. For Croats, it connects them to a past older than Rome, a reminder that their land has always been at the crossroads of civilizations. For humanity, it is a reminder of humility, that nature, for all our science and technology, still holds power beyond comprehension. But the mystery is not closed. New technology, from satellite scans to underwater drones, promises to reveal more than ever before. What if, in the coming years, evidence emerges that confirms the existence of an ancient drowned metropolis? What would that mean for history, for identity, for the way we understand civilization itself? Would it prove that Atlantis, so often dismissed as myth, was in fact a memory passed down through generations, distorted but not entirely invented? Would it force us to rewrite the timeline of human civilization, acknowledging that perhaps there were advanced cultures long before we believed? Or would it simply remind us, once again, that the sea keeps its secrets until it chooses to give them up? The Adriatic is not just water. It is an archive, a vault, holding the treasures and tragedies of countless lives. Beneath its surface lie Roman ships, Venetian trade routes, and perhaps, just perhaps, a city that should not exist. When the sun sets over its calm waves, it is easy to forget the violence hidden below. But those who know, those who have seen the shadows on the seabed, understand that history does not vanish. It waits. And so the story continues. Each diver who descends into those waters becomes part of it. Each archaeologist who dusts off an ancient shard of pottery adds another piece to the puzzle. Each fisherman who swears he saw something impossible keeps the flame alive. The Croatian Atlantis remains half legend, half truth, balanced on the edge of discovery. But maybe, just maybe, that is what makes it so powerful. Because the moment the mystery is solved, the dream ends. As long as it remains uncertain, the lost city lives not just in the Adriatic, but in our imagination. It becomes a story we carry with us, a reminder of both our limits and our possibilities. And in that sense, the lost city is not lost at all. It exists in the minds of everyone who has ever heard its tale. It exists in the hope of discovery, in the fear of loss, in the wonder of what might still lie hidden beneath the waves. So the next time you stand on the cliffs of Dalmatia, staring out at the endless blue, ask yourself, what lies beneath? What stories have the waters swallowed, waiting to be told? And if one day, divers rise from the depths with proof in their hands, will we be ready to face the truth? Or is it better that some mysteries remain unsolved, so they can continue to haunt us, inspire us, and remind us that even in a world mapped and measured, there are still places where myth and reality blur into one. The Adriatic whispers, the city sleeps, the story endures, and maybe that is the real Atlantis.